All right, we're live.
Yeah.
It looks like. Okay. Let's give it a minute for, I guess, people to come in. Plus, I need to pull up the chat.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. I always forget that until we're live. Let's see.
Okay, I got pulled up. I always set it to live chat, even though we're never going to have enough messages that we're not going to have live chat. I do that on my own personal ones as well. I'm like, I'm never going to have so many messages that it's not going to show me everything. But
yeah,
better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to start this off. I don't want to start talking about the book yet.
Right. Do you have a outline for what we're going to do, Giselle?
Not at all. I'm 100% unprepared. I'm not like you two.
Sometimes winging it is like the best way to start the discussion, though, because you're just going off of what you really want to talk about and everything.
Yeah, it's like a natural flow.
Yeah.
You guys are so nice. Okay, so we were talking before we went live, and all of us read it today. I mean, I read the entirety of the thing today. I think you two finished it off right before the live show.
Yeah, I started it on Thursday, and then for some reason just didn't finish it until this morning. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think Goodreads said I started it like March 10th. and I read like 2/3 of it. And then I was like reading other books for challenges. I'm like, I have so much time to read it. And then, yeah, basically I finished it this afternoon. So there you go.
I woke up this morning and I was like, I need to start this. And I'm listening to the audiobook because I know roughly how long it will take me. But then I was like, I have to finish by 2 p.m. because that's when the Stitch and Bitch is happening. Which is like a crafting and talking about SFF books live show. It was over on the Bookfinches channel this week, and I was like, I have to finish by 2 so that I can go craft while listening to them talk about SFF. And so I had like motivation to like finish by 2, which I barely didn't, but I was like, I'll just finish the last little bit before the live show. It's fine. Chris also read the whole thing today. I was like, so are you gonna come join us for the live show tonight? And he's like, that's tonight. I haven't read the book yet.
Well, I think also because it was on the 31st and our last one was on the 3rd. So it feels sort of weird doing it the last day of the month instead of, because like that's just when Sunday happened to fall. So I think that was also messing with my head. I'm like, oh, I have a few days until like before we need to actually discuss it. We did not.
No, I had the same thing where I was like, crap, it's the 31st. That's the day that we're discussing. Whoops. All right. Yep. Well, I don't know if anyone's going to be here because it says there's only one watching, so which would be Christopher.
I saw there's I think Book Roast is doing like a live show, and I don't know if that's like for the Owls Readathon to like prep for that or what, but I'm like, that's going to be popular.
Her book in a jar thing. I guess it's still live. Yeah, everyone's doing their live shows right now, pretty much. I guess.
Yeah,
I feel like Sunday is a popular live show day.
Yeah, which makes sense because it's hard to coordinate weekday schedules. You know, like with work and school and whatever else people have going on. Like usually weekends are easier, so it's like you don't have a lot of options to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess let's just start talking, and people will come in if they so want to. I don't know. I guess just overall impressions and feelings about the books, like maybe our ratings and stuff, and then we'll get more into the more specifics. Do you want to go first, Taylor?
Sure. Okay.
Throw you under the bus. Sorry.
So I would say I like this one a lot better than the Arctic Incident, not as much as the first Artemis Fowl book. I would probably give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think it was really funny. I was pretty interested in the storyline, even though, Butler wasn't in it much, but it's fine.
Yeah.
He does become a silver fox, so I can live with that. And I don't know, I just really liked it. I thought it was fun. The humor really got to me this time. Like, this is the first time where I've gone and I've like tabbed, these are all from one chapter. So like I've got about 4 tabs because I couldn't tab the entire chapter. So I thought it was really funny. So those were my in-depth thoughts.
Yeah. And then I also really liked this one. It was funny because I remembered it being one of my favorites, if not like my favorite in the series. But when I looked at my rating on Goodreads from, I guess, the last time I had reread it, it was at a 4 stars instead of 5 stars. And I'm like, that's weird, like that I remember it as my favorite, but I didn't give it as high of a rating. And then after rereading it this time, I pretty much settled on like 4.5. And the reason, I think this is the first one in this series so far I haven't given 5 stars, even though we've only read like 2 before this. But like, I'm wondering if the reason I didn't give it the full 5 stars is because I found myself so irritated with Pex and Chips. Like, some of their lines, some of them were really funny. Like, I really liked some of it. But there was some of it that I'm like, they are too stupid to stay alive. Like, how have these people not been like naturally selected out of the population?
They were my favorite parts of this book.
some of it I loved. Like, they have one of my favorite lines in the book where one of them is like they say like Batman could take Barney or something, and he's like, it's not a butt kicking thing, it's a values issue. So I like some of it, but like I think just some of those parts were a little like over the top for me, and it bugged me a little bit. But other than that, I really did love this book. Like, I love that most of it is like the heist, and even like knowing how everything's going to play out, I really enjoyed seeing Artemis plan it and like not tell everyone the whole plan. And yeah, I did really enjoy it, and I liked seeing Artemis confronted with the fact that like, hey, your actions have consequences for people. Like, time to acknowledge that. But yeah, aside from my little rant on like Pex and Chips, and apparently how stupid Owen Colfer thinks Americans are, like, aside from that, I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't know. This one was always like my favorite going through, and I don't know. I don't think it will hold it anymore. I think I like the first one better than this one as well. I think it fell in between as well. So you're just different, Kara. Taylor and I agree.
Lower.
Yeah, yours is number 1, 2, and 3 so far, right?
Well, I'm actually thinking about because like we talked about like ranking the books in the series, and I'm actually thinking about that now because this is the one I've rated the lowest. So I'll be interested to see.
Number 5 is gonna be your new favorite.
Well, like, no, I don't think so. But like, I'm curious to see now because like maybe I don't know if this one is my favorite anymore. Because like I also loved the first one so much, and I also really liked the Arctic incident. And this one, maybe because I was remembering it as my favorite, it was harder for it to live up to that. But
yeah, I can see that.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Giselle. I just cut you off.
No, I pulled you into it. I don't know. I did really enjoy this one. This was the first one that like really gripped me when I read the series originally, and I really enjoyed, I don't know, like reliving that a bit. I had forgotten a lot of like the plot points of like how layered the story is, and how just like there's just it's thing upon thing upon thing on this one, and I was like genuinely surprised some of the times, and I was like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, something about it didn't like, I don't know, quite click with me as much. It's probably still like a 4.5. Like, I really liked it, but I think maybe it's just like how utterly ridiculous it is. And all the books in this series are just like super silly. And this one especially, I felt like there was just like, again, yeah, like with Pex and Chicks and just like all these other characters and lines, it was just like very over the top at times, and I feel like, yeah, it did pull me out of the story better. I was like, it's just like a bit much, like especially like for like a kid's book. And I don't know, like all the stuff about like mulch as well, I'm just like, I'm surprised at how much like I blocked my mind up.
Yeah.
And all the dwarf stuff because I just like don't enjoy it so much. And so it's like, I don't know, I have mixed feelings on it, but I still overall really like this one. But not as much as I did before.
Yeah.
But I think it will always hold like a super special place in my heart for being the first book in the series that I actually really liked. And it is super surprising to see reading this as like a kid, you'd be like blown away by all the plot twists and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and also because like going off of what you said about like being like the series is kind of over the top at times, and like that's one of the things that makes it fun is like Artemis's plans are like so like audacious and like incredibly complicated, and that's one of the things that makes it fun. But I feel like with the previous books, and from what I can remember, the later ones that we haven't gotten to yet, I feel like some of the books or the scenes have like a better, they feel more like grounded, not necessarily like they're more realistic, but like with the Arctic incident, like the way he gets his dad back, like it's over the top and it probably wouldn't have worked in real life, and there's all these things that should have made it feel like silly, but it didn't feel silly to me because like I don't know, the emotional content was still there, I feel. And I think with this one of the reasons it felt a little more unbelievable to me is that like we were saying, like some of the humor was a little bit over the top, but also because there wasn't that sort of, there was like the, oh, we have to save the fairy and human world from colliding, but there wasn't that feeling of like a strong emotional core underneath all the like hijinks. I don't know if any of that made sense, but like
No,
I don't know. I mean, there was the like the threat of the mind wipe thing that did kind of feel more serious, and the rest of it, I guess with the other books, it just feels like even though there were all these like wacky situations going on, there was still some heart to it, and I feel like this one didn't have that as much, I guess.
I think they got it all out in like the first like couple chapters with like, is it a spoiler if it happens in like the first few chapters?
I assume that people are watching this if they've read the whole book, so I feel like we're okay. But
okay, so like I guess Butler's death was like the emotional like crux of the story, and they got it out in the first few chapters, which was so weird. And then like everyone just kept going off, I guess, as if not as if everything were normal, but I feel like maybe they could have drawn that out a little, like connected Butler's like death with like to the stakes, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how they would have done that, but
like Butler just bounces back from it. And I'm like, how did it feel to be dead? Like there was no
I'm surprised no one like asked him. I'm like, well, Butler knows it all. Like, what's going on? Is there a god? Like, you gotta let us know.
like, I guess, I mean, maybe he like couldn't remember it. I don't know if maybe that's why he didn't allude to it, is we're just supposed to think that like whatever happened, he didn't remember it because he came back. But like even just the emotional stakes of like I was dead for several hours, it never comes up. He's like one track mind, must protect Artemis, even with my corpse.
I like that. Yeah, I will say my least favorite part was actually like the Butler's death part. Not the fact that he died, but when he was like saying goodbye to Artemis, because it's like one of my least favorite tropes where someone's on death's door and they have this whole monologue before they die. And it's always so cheesy and stupid. And hearing it on audiobook, which is how I read the series, was just, it took me out of the moment because it was just so ridiculous. Like, goodbye, Artemis, my friend.
My friend, yeah. Yeah.
So that was probably my least favorite part. Just the whole Butler's death arc was so like quick, you know?
Yeah. Well, and especially because Artemis and Butler, like they obviously have feelings, but they don't express them very strongly. So it felt a little out of character. Like I feel like they would have like a really intense goodbye, but it wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if it would sound like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like his death is almost just put in there to like build up for things in later books. Yeah. So I don't think it really plays a big part in this, but like aspects of that do play like a big part later. But it almost felt inconsequential that it happened in this book at all. But of course it had to before in the Mind Wipe, because now his body feels totally different. He reacts totally different, I think this, I don't remember totally, but like I think it like maybe pulls Juliet in more as like a second bodyguard when needed and stuff like that. Just interesting.
Can we talk about the mind wipe thing for a second? Because like it's so unethical. Like it's so like that's what I kept thinking about. I mean, for one thing, like I don't enjoy the part because it's very sad. Like even knowing that there are more books in the series, it's like sad seeing Artemis like lose this really important part of himself, you know, like, and seeing how it affects Holly and everything and other people who know them. But one thing that I kept thinking this time that I don't remember ever thinking about before is like, how are they justifying like this? Like this seems like such a gross abuse of power to just decide what somebody else is going to remember. Or like especially because it's so many memories. Like this could really affect who he is as a person. Which he brings up. Like, I don't know, I just thought it was super weird. And I feel like it's a good example of something we've talked about before with like the fairies act like they're the good guys and they actually do a lot of like really sketchy things. Like this is like really, I don't know, it just makes me super uncomfortable. Like just imagining somebody with the power to like come into your head and like delete stuff. And then there's that one throwaway line where Foley's like, oh, keep a copy. I'm going to read this when I have some free time. I'm like, you're going to read somebody else's memories? Like, it was just, I don't know. It's just like really weirded me out this time. Like, I mean, and Holly seems really bothered by it, which I think is probably mostly because she knows Artemis and Juliet and Butler. It's not so much like the technology itself that bothers her, but I'm like, this is a huge ethical issue that no one is talking about.
Yeah, like with the loafers, where they just wiped his memory and dropped him in the middle of Kenya. Like, I get that he was a bad guy, but you just wiped his memories and dropped him in just some random country?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and like, it's weird too with loafers because like he's a bad person, and I understand why they need to do something that like keeps him out of commission from like murdering people because that's his job. He's a hitman. But it's so scary to think about the fact that somebody could just delete someone's entire personality and just drop them somewhere, and like he gets like no say in it, which like I don't know, again, because like loafers is bad. It's not that I want him to. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird when they're bad guys because it's like it is for like the greater good, but who gives you the like? How do they know that they have the right or the ability to decide that? Like,
it was also really sad, like hearing his like internal struggles about like not really knowing what's going on and who he is and all this like fighting with his subconscious and stuff. It was like super effed up.
Yeah. Like, does loafers have like a Mrs. Loafer or Mr. Loafer? Like, what about Loaflets? Like, we don't know his life. Like, we don't know if he has a family.
Loaflets. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much all just like the fact that like the humans are bad and humans are evil, so we can do whatever we want to them as long as we don't kill them, because that's where they draw the line. They're like, we will not kill living beings or basically disable them if at all possible, but anything else is free reign because they're scum. Because even Holly's like, oh no, I don't want to like, don't do anything that's like gonna actually physically hurt them and all these things. But like, yeah, messing with their mind, like she was totally in with like, taking out loafers and stuff.
Yeah. They're just like, oh, like this is how we fix the problem, and they just do it. There was like no no, you don't even really see the like decision making process. It's just like it cuts to him like abandoned in Kenya or
and like everyone else is fine with it too, because like even like Artemis is fine with it and stuff, knowing that this is something that's gonna like happen to him, and like Butler doesn't say anything, like nobody cares.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Like knowing that they're gonna be in the same position and they're like, it's fine, just dump him there. Like yeah.
Sorry, what were you gonna say, Taylor?
Oh, I was also just gonna say, like, I don't know, this book really got me with all of how these fairies just always talk about how morally superior they are to like humans. Like this entire book, not the entire book, but you know, there was some throwaway line about how humans like discriminate against people for like race or religion and so on. But then like I don't know, the fairies just hate goblins, like universally. They just hate goblins, and I don't know, they hate humans. So it just really got on my nerves how, how they think they're morally superior and they're just not.
Yeah. Well, and I think that to a certain extent, some of it is, I think, on purpose, because like on purpose from the author's perspective, because one of the things, like, we obviously, like, Artemis's character development, I think, is pretty obvious over the series. It's like you see very clearly that he's like becoming a different person, and he even talks about it in this book about how, like, working with the fairies and like helping them stop the Goblin Revolution, and like them helping him get his dad back and all of this, like, it made him a different and better person. But I think with Holly too, like, the series from her perspective is about realizing that, like, not all humans are scum, like realizing that a lot of the things that she's been taught about how they're like the morally superior group of people is like not true. But like, it does get really grating, because and I think Giselle brought this up last time too, what you were saying about how like goblins is like a big blind spot they seem to have, where it's like they have all these rules about like fair treatment and everything, except for all the sexism apparently in the police force. And also, if you're a goblin, like, you are a criminal and deserve to be locked up even if you haven't done anything. Like, it's really weird.
And about the like sexism in the police department, they talk about like mud people being behind, but at least we've had female police officers for, I don't know, since when?
Before 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of a blind spot, but it doesn't take away too much. It's just every time it pops up, I just get a little bit more irritated.
Yeah. And I think we do see some of the sexism, like, things addressed more, but yeah, there's some aspects of it where it's like, I don't remember if this is ever like specifically called out in the book, like the way that, like, has anyone like called the fairies on how much of a hypocrite they are about like this particular thing? And yeah, definitely picking up a lot more on their like unfair treatment, their like inability to see themselves clearly. I'm definitely noticing that a lot more on this read, because I think before I was pretty much, well, when I read it when I was younger, for sure, I was like, the fairies are the good guys, right? Like, it's like, not always.
Yeah.
I don't know. These books are crazy.
Yeah. I will say I was happy to see Juliet get a sort of character arc in this book. It was nice to get more of Juliet.
Yeah. I love her entrance where she like she disables not Blunt. She disables Loafer's gun and like throws him through the breakfast bar. And Mulch stands there. He's like, "Hey, Butler, I'm guessing that's your sister." It's great. Yeah, I really liked seeing her like get more time here and actually like see more of her personality and like who she is as a person. And she's great. I love her.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And she's gonna be a wrestler. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Did she?
It was really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, did she make her try out at the end, or she's just about to have her?
She's about to. She's about to audition. I really also thought it was interesting seeing from her perspective how like being a bodyguard just like completely like destroys the rest of your life, and like Butler's fine with it because he's like accepted this. But it was just really interesting seeing a different like point of view, because I think when we're in Butler's perspective, it's much more like protect the principal at all costs, and it's like, this is what I was born to do. And like with Juliet, she's like, I kind of want a life. Like, I want to do other things. I'm like, that's probably like more relatable, I think, too.
Yeah, and she doesn't seem to really like actually hurting people as much. She doesn't seem to have the stomach for it, which I really liked. And I like to wrestling because I think most people know wrestling is fake. So I really like that. How she just doesn't have the stomach for violence, and that's okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's also like very interesting. Like, I don't know if a plot like this would work in America with like having a bodyguard for like, I don't know, like make as much sense in America. I don't know if that's something that's more like a little bit European, of like older like family ideals and like passing down on, because it's like butlers have been doing this for generations and generations, and every single butler does this, and it's like almost like they don't have an option except for to become a bodyguard unless you're a female, because they do talk about how all the butlers go to like the academy or whatever, except for Juliet. It's like one of the first females to ever like try to pass the academy exam. So I'm like kind of confused on that point. Is there only ever been males in the butler line?
Yeah.
But like, also, how does the butler line like continue? And it's just if they're all just like
like
forever, but like I don't know if this is something that just like doesn't make sense to me. And I think maybe if it's like this more like traditional thing, and that's like traditions are maybe a bit more like they're still like breaking out of that a bit with the like that's like something that's like been very prevalent in like Europe for so long that's like something that you kind of more accept, but like it's really weird.
I kind of assumed there were a lot of butlers because the one that died, who was guarding Artemis Fowl's father, who died, he was Artemis Fowl butler's Domovoy. Him, he was his uncle. So I'm assuming there's like a branch. So like maybe they're like a lot of cousins or so on, and that's how it works.
Yeah, and it might be like with Juliet that we're starting to see that almost like not feudal system. I'm trying to think of the word I mean, but like that hierarchy, like of like the old rich families just having these bodyguard butler people like to protect them. It might be that with Juliet we're sort of starting to see the like modern response to that idea as like this is a little strange, you know, like maybe I want to be something different than a human shield. Like,
I wonder, since probably a lot of the male butlers aren't always focused on having offspring, but like the women like couldn't go to the academy or whatever. I wonder if a lot of the women just like either got married or didn't, kept their maiden names, and then like gave their children like their last name and like never changed the last name. That's like how the butler lines continue, is just like through these like awesome women. Anyway, something to think about. I don't know. I just like I found it like especially strange, like seeing her like at the academy and talking about it. I'm just like, this is bizarre, and just like all the butlers are bodyguards. Period.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there wasn't as much Foley in this one, which is sad.
I know. Or Root. We didn't see a lot of either of them.
Root was barely in it. Yeah. I thought like with Foley, most of what we saw of him was him almost blowing the whole plan because he's such a smartass. Like he's supposed to be pretending to be this like supercomputer voice, and he keeps saying things about dwarves and like he's weird, like making weird jokes, and like I love Foley, but I was a little frustrated because I'm like, if you obviously I know it works out okay because I've read this like 1,000 times, but I'm like, if you had like blown this because you couldn't keep your mouth shut, like,
it also would have been very in character though. So
it would have been it would have been very in character. That's true. But yeah, there wasn't as much Foley or Root, or it was really more about like the main characters, I guess, in this one is like they're together for like most of the book and it's like just them, you know?
Yeah. It's weird to think of Mulch as like a main character though, because I still can't help but see him as a side character.
Yeah.
But he was in this book a lot. So
a lot. Also, so speaking of Mulch, does everyone just ignore the fact that he has been working for the mob and presumably killing people?
Did I just say that when I had tea in my mouth?
I'm sorry. But like it was just weird because when I was reading about like his introduction where they're talking about how he's been working for the Frazzettis and everything, because all Italians are in the mob, I guess. And they mentioned that like he's been like hired by them as like a contractor, and it didn't like give any details, but it's like, oh, this one job he wouldn't do because it's Artemis and Artemis is his friend. I'm like, so does this mean you've like killed other people, Mulch? Like, are you an assassin now? Like,
he talks about how he's like, he is a monkey man though. Pretty much, I think every job he's had before this, I think he mentions is that like he's very uncomfortable even before he knows that it's Artemis, and he thinks about taking off like even before it's Artemis because he doesn't like the interaction with people, and he doesn't like the people thing, and that he just focuses on burglary.
Okay.
And not even like robbery, but burglary, where it's not physically harming the people.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Because I remember him saying when they mentioned that, like, oh, you're escorting the Mark. And you're right, it was before he even knew it was Artemis. And he was like really uncomfortable with that because he didn't want to like kidnap someone. I guess I just assumed that like he had been helping
that he was a hitman.
Yeah. Like I guess I just assumed that like, I mean, he's been working for people who like do contract killings. So I guess I just figured he was like part of that or like on board for that.
He's at least a little bit complicit.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking is like you definitely helped them do their jobs. Like,
I mean, yeah. I think it's just that like Mulch's, I mean, he doesn't have like a great moral code, and then also he's just very lazy. And so he's like, oh, as pretending to be a human, I don't want to have to get a job where I'm like gonna have to work like a 40-hour work week and all this stuff and like to make do, so I'm gonna get hired to rob because I'm really good at burglaring. And so that's like why he went with that. And he's just like, like I'm not like happy about the stuff that they're doing, but like also I'm not doing it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I can't remember if they explained how he joined the mob, but like I don't know. He's just in
the mob. Didn't explain. They're like Mulch is in the mafia now. Like
he found a posting on LinkedIn and just
like, how did he even get hired? Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, he just knows a lot about the human world for a dwarf, which I find very amusing. Like he just shows up and he's in the mob now and it's fine.
Don't worry about it. Like no need to explain.
It irritates me about how he's portrayed on like these covers too.
Oh,
like that is not human looking.
That's the one I have right now.
And it's like he's passing himself off, and it's literally just a height thing that they talk about. They don't talk about like features or anything that might like give him away as like being like his teeth don't look like that according to like the book and stuff, and I don't know, like it kind of like I don't know, it really throws me off that this is like what they chose to depict him as, because I'm like he's passing himself off as like a human dwarf, like
like
that does not look humanoid.
Honestly, I have just learned to like ignore half of the physical descriptions and like portrayals, because like the thing that annoys me is Owen Colfer seems to like every time he writes a character, he seems to forget how tall he's made them. And I wouldn't notice, except that like every once in a while they'll bring up how short fairies are. They're supposed to be like 3 feet tall. And I'm like, that's small. Like that is like obviously small to be like walking around in the human world. But then I distinctly remember in a later book, because this pissed me off so much, at one point Holly and Artemis are on stairs and she stands, I think, 1 step above him and she's eye level with him. And I'm like like, that's impossible.
Surprise, Artemis was this tall.
Artemis is also 3 feet tall. Like, it's such a meaningless thing to get annoyed about, but like that's the only continuity thing that really bothers me about this series, because I'm like, how are these people even talking to each other? Like I'm a like relatively short person, and when I talk to really tall people, it affects how I talk to them. Anyway, that's my complaint.
It's, I mean, and that happens not with just fairies as well, but like Artemis's like physical descriptions between the end of book 6 and the beginning of book 7, and even the end of book 5 and the beginning of book 6 is like, what are you doing? He does this a lot where he'll just like write this and be like, scrap it, but like leaves it in canon and then just like completely changes it. And then I remember that happened in book 7, and I'm like, what is happening? This is not how Artemis was described at the end of the last book. And it's like he got like shorter between the books and stuff.
Huh.
So we'll have to see when we get there if it bothers me as much as it did originally. But yeah, he does not have that continuity.
I would say for the Mulch appearance thing, like just going back to the whole Mulch doesn't look like a human at all. My question is, how did he explain away the weird pore thing he does? Because I feel like maybe that changes depending on the climate he's in. And no one's gonna notice that his pores are like.
I think if he drinks a lot of water and stays hydrated,
Okay.
then it's okay. But if he stops drinking water, then his pores go crazy.
That's
okay.
And same thing, like he talks about physically having to think about like not letting his like hairs like freak out and stuff, and he just like has to think about like keeping them steady so that he doesn't like alert people.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if it was like depending on how much moisture is in the air or something. So like he could be in like a really dry room and he looks like SpongeBob all of a sudden. So like that I just don't get dwarf anatomy, and I keep forgetting that they're so weird and gross. So
I know. It's like I don't get it, but I want him to stop explaining it to us.
You could have just told us he can climb walls and I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. Oh, something like this is not related to what we were talking about, but this kind of goes along with like how are people not noticing these things? So everyone that Butler interacts with is so chill about the fact that he has come back from the dead. Like and I guess like to a certain point it makes sense because like presumably these are all like bodyguards or other like law enforcement who are used to like need to know basis, like like trusting the higher ups and like not asking questions. But like at one point Artemis, he's talking to the police officer who he's saying like don't look in the freezer because I need to like do something mysterious and then Butler will be fine. And the guy checks in the freezer and it's Butler's dead body. And then later, I was assuming Butler talks to him again. So, like, what did they think happened? Like, how is this not? I mean, like, I'm really glad Butler came back. Like, I'm really glad Holly healed him. But it's just like, I don't know. People Butler knows are like so ride or die for him. They will trust anything he says.
Yeah. Maybe this is just a normal occurrence in the Artemis Fowl.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, like, I guess it does, like I said, I guess it does, like, make sense with their profession and how they're sort of used to, like, following orders and, like, not questioning stuff. But, like, there were a couple of times where I'm like, this is a little much. Like, don't you have some questions?
I think they mentioned in the book as well that, like, people have been revived at, like, the 4-hour mark for being frozen before as well. So maybe he just, like, thinks, like, Artemis is just especially good at like reviving, so even if it took like 5 or 6 hours, because he doesn't know exactly how long it ended up taking after, even though we know it was like a good like 7 more hours while he's like waiting outside the cryogenic center in the pitch dark. But like I think he figured out what he did, and he saw him pull up in the cryogenics van and stuff.
Right. I can accept that, I guess. Yeah. Like, I withdraw my objection. Like,
no, I mean, it's fine. There are some plot holes there. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just really quickly, I did grab the graphic novel because someone mentioned it about like how unpleasant Mulch looks in it.
Oh yeah.
Wait. I have to find Foley. Give me just a second.
Oh man, I
Foley looks awful. He looks so bad.
I hate Foley in this. Oh
Aren't they redoing the graphic novels? I remember being super happy when I heard about that because I'm like, I hated the illustrations for these other ones. Like,
yeah, they are.
Also, Artemis looks like a middle-aged man who's like 2 feet tall. Like that's
that's what every 13-year-old looks like.
And like Holly has like the most ridiculous boobs. Like she's like I just remember like reading that as like I don't know if I was a kid or how old I was, but I remember reading that and I'm like, this seems like. Why is there a scene with her showering? Like, technically that happened in the... Like, it doesn't show you anything. But, like, I remember when she's first introduced, it's like she's drinking a smoothie and she gets in... Yes! Just like, she's drinking a smoothie and she gets in the shower and it's, like, not a big deal. So I'm like, why did you choose to draw this panel? Like, it's weird.
That's a weird choice.
This is Foley in the graphic novel.
Oh, can you move it up a bit?
There you are.
Oh my god, I hate it.
Yeah, I really hate the art in this book. I like reread it in like February, like after we read the first book, and I was like, I don't know. I got like 15 pages into it and I like flipped through the rest and I was like, I can't read this again. I read it when I was a teenager and I liked it then for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so unpleasant. I hate the art. Like with a
hate
passion.
that Foley's a blonde. I don't know why that decision for him.
He's
orange.
and he has
Yeah.
blue skin.
Yeah. I was unhappy with a lot of the art in that one, so I was pretty pleased to hear that they're redoing the graphic novels. Like,
Yeah.
I hope it's a better illustrator. I don't think it's coming out for a little while though. I think it's like
Yeah.
around the release of the movie.
yeah,
They're
it's
probably
gonna
gonna
be
do that. Yeah.
It can't come soon enough.
Do they have any panels of like Mulch's weird pores doing their thing?
Here's Foley again, just in case you
Oh,
didn't see it.
oh, it's horrible.
It's really bad.
He
no.
He
They
looks
do
like an
show-
orangutan. Like, that's what his orange hair makes me think of, is like a weird orangutan.
Oh,
They
I
do
hate it.
show Mulch like tunneling a bit though, which is
Oh,
lovely.
man.
There's like another panel where there's like smoke coming out from his butt. So it's great. I love it. So like I said, I think I blocked a lot of the memories from like these books and how they describe it and how like he's like, Juliet, you have to squeeze my toe for me because I have to aim. And I was just like, please, no.
I know.
Gosh.
The visual image of that was like the worst thing. Like, also, I have to wonder, like, not to bring this away from the books, really, but how they're going to do that in the movies. Because Kenneth Branagh doesn't seem like the type to really get into toilet humor. So.
He's a Shakespearean actor.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I know. Well, because, like, I'll be interested to see where they try and, like, I don't know, how they try and do the rating, like the age range suitability for the movie, because it's like Disney's making it and this is a kids book series, but they have to know that a lot of the fans from the series are now like in their 20s who are probably like, some of them at least are going to want to see the movie. So I'll be interested and a little apprehensive to see how much they lean into the like kids are going to love this because it's a joke about toilets, like kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone I know, that's like their least favorite thing about the books.
Mm-hmm.
One of their least favorite things about the books. So like nobody likes this. Please change it. But I just give them a big shovel.
Well, and even when I was reading them for the first time as like a kid, I don't remember liking it. Like I don't think I liked that then either. Mm-hmm. So it's like, who are you really catering to? I not even all the kids this age are going to find that funny. So,
but I also don't know how they're going to get around that because so much of the events revolve around Mulch's bodily function. So
he does have the biggest neck ever. I never bringing that up.
So everything below the neck is fine, but like, why do they give him such a small head?
I don't know. It's just like
I remember not hating Artemis's character design as much, but he looks like they drew like an adult man and then just made him short.
I mean, that is Artemis Fowl.
It is, but like I remember there's all these panels of him standing in front of the like computer bank and his face is just like I mean, and like that's probably accurate because the first book especially, he's like, I have no emotions. What is a feeling? Like,
oh boy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Him.
Yeah.
It's unpleasant. Let's keep our fingers crossed for the next graphic novel rendition. It can't be worse, right?
Yeah.
He sure knows how to drive a plot with poop jokes.
Yeah, he does.
Things that happen, that takes talent.
Yep.
Fair enough. Good point, even though it's
impressive but unpleasant.
And that's just Mulch's entire character description.
It
impressive,
is.
But pleasant.
Yep.
But I did think he had like some good lines. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. Go.
I was just saying he did have some good lines in this book, you know? Yeah. I did enjoy him when he wasn't being gross. Like with everything. Like he's a fun character.
Right. I think I tabbed a couple of those. No, I can't find them, of course.
No Mulch and Foley interactions. I'm so sad.
After seeing what they look like in the graphic novel, I'm just gonna stamp a big nope on that.
Like, I don't want to think about them being with anyone. Yeah, I can't find the ones I marked. But, like, I thought that like Mulch and just his complete inappropriate like timing for humor, like no matter the situation. Like Holly and Juliet are in that like fight, I guess, about how like Juliet wasn't following orders and everything, and Holly gets really mad because like, you know, the operation is pretty high stakes, and she's like, we can't really afford mistakes. And Mulch comes out of the bathroom, she's like, ladies, if you're fighting over me, like, I never date outside my species, like, just get over it. Like, I do really like some scenes he's in. He is funny, but it's just like every time he has to do something that's plot relevant, I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
Climbing up the wall wasn't that bad. That was pretty impressive.
That's true. That was pretty cool.
The first non-gross thing he's done so far in the series.
Yeah.
I really loved seeing Juliet in this book. That one, I love her. Like, I love all her internal dialogue of like her figuring out that like this isn't something she wants to do with her life, and just struggling with that and being like, I feel like it is something that she wants to, or her feeling like it is something that she like is supposed to do, but not enjoying it and all that. I loved seeing that, and like her making all these mistakes and being like, I just don't like this.
Yeah. And like something like one of the scenes that for some reason really stood out to me that I like remembered about this book was like when they have to, this is not related to Juliet, when they have to cut off Spyro's finger or his thumb for the thumbprint, and like Artemis has known this the whole time, and he like didn't tell Holly because he knew she was like not going to agree. And like I just remember them having that like fight in the middle of this operation. He's like, we have to go, like we have to do it now, and she's like, just stop talking, Artemis, just close your mouth. Like and like it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. And I also feel like it's such a good, like it's just really encapsulates how it's like Artemis has had a lot of character development, but he's still like, he manipulates people all the time, even people on his side, because like he knows that that's the only way he's going to get them to like go along with him, you know? And like, I don't know, I just remember thinking that whole like sequence is like so interesting. And then like he doesn't tell Holly that he knows the body is a double, which was interesting because she knows there's a plan B, but I guess she never knew that he was planning to use plan B all along. And then I know. And then the other thing about that was just like seeing Artemis and Holly like work together. I mean, they did that in the Arctic incident too, but like really understand each other. And like when she's cutting the ceiling over his room and she like already knows he's gonna put a pillow there to like muffle the sound, and she's so pissed off about the fact, she's like, yeah, we know each other really well. Like I hate it, but also you're kind of my friend, but you're an asshole. Like
yeah, honestly like Artemis and Holly's friendship is one of my favorite aspects of the book. Like how they've grown from book 1 to now is really nice, and how they tend to be on the same page, but not all the time, like with the thumb thing.
Yeah. Sorry. The thumb thing, sorry.
See, the entire time I was like, Holly, stop crying about it. Just do it and get it over. I know. And it's, like, you so secure death. Like, you can put a thumb back together.
Yeah. And it's like, Spyro is like such an awful person anyway, that it's like, temporarily cutting off his thumb is really not what, like, he's not gonna get what he deserves. Like, it's okay, but it's interesting because I can sort of see, I can see why she's upset he didn't tell her, and I can see why she's worried about like the fact that Artemis like was manipulating the fairy like resources again and like not telling them everything. But it's weird reading that part because you are kind of on Artemis's side, where it's like the clock is ticking. We need to save the world. We can worry about the moral ramifications of this at a later date. Like,
yeah,
it's just a thumb. He's unconscious. He didn't feel it. Let's move on.
And like also like that's like in modern medicine as well and stuff, like you can put a finger back on, like at least partials and stuff. Like my brother got part of his finger like torn off and reattached, and he has sense there and everything's fine. So like that, like, I think that also like never seemed like a super big deal to me because of that as well, because like my brother had it happen and he's totally fine. So I'm like, with fairy magic, what can go wrong?
Yeah, and I guess what she was reacting to is the fact that it's like in the middle of this operation that like, and he didn't warn her about it beforehand. But yeah, every time I get to that part, I'm kind of like, this seems a little out of proportion.
Yeah.
It sounds heartless. It's like you're just removing someone's thumb. Like, get over it.
Like, and there's also that like she has to do it, like Artemis isn't the one cutting it off, and they're just like running around with like a thumb as well, which is like kind of unpleasant to think about, but it's fine.
Yeah. But this is also the man who kind of gave the orders to kill like how old is he now? 14? 13, 14?
13?
Yeah. He's 13, I think.
A 13-year-old, like, you know, just take the thumb. It's fine. Like, you can put it back later. You're not killing him.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's interesting, like, depending on whose perspective you're reading from, it's like your like moral, the lines you won't cross kind of shift. Like we were talking about with the memory wiping and how that's super over the line and like really disturbing if you think about it too much. And here it's like, just take the thumb. Like, just go.
I've already got like my saw out and I'm like
yeah. But it's funny seeing them like bicker even in the midst of all this. Like she's like, we have to be professional and everything, and he's like telling her how to remove the thumb, and she's like, shut up and let me do this. And he's like, okay. Like, I'll just let this one go.
I love them. They're my favorite.
Honestly, the characters are really the strongest part of like these books. Like sometimes the plot and the dimensions of the characters are a little iffy, but like when it comes down to it, I love seeing all of the characters interact. Like the banter is usually really good.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I what?
Sorry. I just, not to change the subject really quickly, but something I did want to mention is that that is one of the things that I feel like make this story feel a little bit like ridiculous and over the top to me is just like how easily characters went from like 0 to 100 on like I don't remember the New Zealand guy, whatever his name is, where like he like the bodyguard where he like is like totally fine, and then Artemis like starts like playing mind games with him, and like how easily he like gave in to them and was just like, oh yeah, like, and like started believing him and letting him twist him. And then like Spyro, how quickly he went from like 0 to 100 at the end as well, where like they have these flips, and it's like it really just feels like it's there to like show like how like intelligent and intimidating Artemis is, but like I don't buy it personally. I was just like that was real fast.
I thought the same thing about Blunt. I think that's the guy who shot Butler. Yeah. I felt the same way. I was like, this happened really fast and I don't buy it. And I think like it occurred to me with Spyro too, but I think the reason I could accept it a little bit more is that like Spyro has a one-track mind, you know? So I feel like it's not as hard to like manipulate him, because it's like, you know, he's always going to do the most selfish option. He's always going to want to do it in the most petty way possible, you know, like with like manipulating him into going to Phonetics, like the rival company. Like I can see why that would be, it's like, okay, that's risky to hinge your whole plan on being able to get him to do what you want. But on the other hand, I'm like, of course he would do that. Like Spyro would, like his first action would be to piss off his competition. Like no matter how much danger it would have put him in to be caught there, he's like, yeah, I really want to stick it to them. So I think it like didn't bother me as much with him, because I'm like, he really is only after one thing, and if you can figure out what the one thing is, like you own him.
Yeah.
But like I see what you mean about the characters doing 180s. I feel like the main characters of the series, like their character development to me is like so good, and it like really means a lot to me, and it's one of my favorite things about the series. But I do feel like with some of the secondary, or I guess not even secondary characters, like the side characters, it is kind of glossed over, because like the books are so short, so they can't show us this like whole arc of like why Blunt would have like changed his mind about this, and like how he became afraid of Butler when he saw him die. And like, I don't know, I see what you mean about some of the like less important characters kind of getting just like written off as like, oh, he's completely different now, like let's move on to the other stuff.
Yeah.
But it's even just like all the characters, like even like the girl at the beginning, like the little waitress, or even in book 1, the whatever the guy was at the beginning, but like the waitress at the beginning of this one, where he like literally is like, give me an adult menu and give me like spring water, but like don't put ice cubes in it. Are you stupid? And she's just like, oh, and like cowers away from him. And I'm like, no, like, I mean, I've worked customer service for years. Like, if a kid behaved like that to me, oh, you bet your bottom dollar I would sass him back. Like, absolutely. And like, I just like how like intimidating he is and stuff. I'm just like, no.
Yeah,
no 12-year-old is intimidating.
You see, like, I really don't like kids. So I guess it doesn't bother me as much because I'm like, ew, like this little like little punk, like, but I'm also super not confrontational. So when, even though like I think the waitress thing was over the top, it didn't like stand out to me as being ridiculous, because I don't know that I necessarily would have like, if this like creepy looking little kid in a suit like said something like rude to me, I wouldn't necessarily like throw down. Like I don't know. I guess it's just like my personality is such that when I read that, it doesn't stand out to me as being like so ridiculous, because like I'm not a huge fan of kids. I don't like get along with them super well. And I'm also like not likely to like talk back if somebody says something bad to me in that situation. So, but like I know that's a common like complaint with this book series. So like I get what you mean.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts? Favorite part? Favorite quote? I don't have a favorite quote. You do, share.
I mean, all of my favorite quotes are from Chips and Pex because I found them funny, and I think it's because I don't usually like characters that are too dumb to function. But since they weren't in here a lot, I felt, then I thought like, okay, well, I can tolerate them. And part of it is just, just the way they interact. Like the fact that they can't read maps, which I mean, I can't either, but.
Well,
I don't think they can read at all.
Yeah. I agree with Kara on this one a little bit. They were a bit over the top. Oh, I think I've seen that one. Oh, the one with the words at the end. Like you never.
That's one of the ones I have tabbed.
Isn't that like, I don't know, like, isn't it like also like a common like thing as well, where it's like people who are like stupid will also watch movies as well, so like at least they don't like play into that trope, whereas like if you just watch a lot of movies and TV, you're automatically like brain dead. So that's nice at least, but I'm like, you've literally never, like, were you not a child once? Have you never seen a movie?
They're like stupid to the point where it's like, how have you not gotten hit by a car? Like, would you know how to use a crosswalk? Like, I just, like, I don't know. There were a couple of lines in them that I really enjoyed, but it's like the whole time they were here, I'm like, Spyro is a smart man. Why would he hire people that are so dumb? Like his whole operation is like taken down by the fact that he employs like, what do they call them? Like shaved gorillas, practically. They're like, actually, gorillas are supposed to be very smart animals, so they're probably smarter than Pex and Chips.
I mean, it describes how they got the job, where all the applicants were handed a walnut, and Pex shouted at the walnut for a few minutes and then flattened it between his giant palms. Chip had opted for a more controversial method. He placed the walnut on the table, grabbed his interviewer by the ponytail, and used the man's forehead to smash the nut. It's like fantastic. But I also liked when why was I going to call him Merle? Mulch. Referred to them as a single-cell crow referred to both of them as single-cell crow magnons. And Pex says, nobody calls me an overdeveloped single-bell crow magnet. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, that was.
And Mulch is like, yeah, I bet they don't.
I bet no one does, yeah. And he's just like, tells them to bury him, and they're like, okay. He just like lies down in his grave and is like, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you guys had favorite quotes.
I read it too fast. I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, with this one, especially because I stopped tabbing as frequently. But I think with this one, I ended up with like favorite scenes more than favorite quotes. Like I really liked the first scene we see Juliet in, where she's like taking her exam and then she ends up going to going to find Butler when he meets her. And I love her entrance where she just like body slams loafers like through a wall. And then I really liked some of the parts during the actual heist, and I really liked the end. Well, I didn't enjoy it. It's like the mind wipe thing. It's like not a pleasant thing to read, but it was very like it had an impact on me. Like no matter how many times I read this book, every time I get to the end, and it's like really bleak. It's like Artemis knows that the next time he wakes up, he's gonna have no idea who these people are, and like Holly's bothered by it, but no one else seems to mind. Yeah, like I think the ending of this book was like pretty good. Like seeing
Certainly
that and then
really
transitioning into what?
I said it's a really good setup.
Yeah. Like seeing this like transition into his diary entry, and you can see how different he is from his earlier diary entries about how he like wants to be a better person, and like he's scared of it, but he's also like impressed that his father has changed, and then he's just like almost completely reverted back to having like no conscience whatsoever. So yeah, I thought the ending was really strong in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been really bad about checking the messages. I just realized.
I haven't been good about reading them out, but I have been reading them all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have to agree. Like all my favorite parts are pretty much any scene with Juliet, because I love her. She's like my favorite character. And then any scene with like Holly and Artemis like working together and stuff, or even just like interacting is my favorite.
Like I love how similar they are, and they don't really realize it. Like I mean, Holly is just like so smart. Like I love seeing her actually like kind of in charge of the operation and everything, because she's so intelligent, and it's like, yeah, Artemis is like a super genius or whatever, but it's not like she's dumb. Like she's not just like, I'm the one that's the I don't know, like the emotional one, and I make impulse decisions. Like she does do that. She is like a very emotional character, especially compared to Artemis. But like she does think ahead. Like she does plan like how people are going to react and things. And it's just like, it's great seeing them play off each other, and especially in this book, because it's like they know each other pretty well by this point, so they know how the other person's going to react. Yeah, I love their interactions too.
I did forget at the very end about the fairy paintings. I like totally forgot about that. Like slight spoiler warnings to like the very beginning of the next book, but like they do talk about like how he's really into like art of fairies now, and I like totally forgot about that. I'm like, now that like got jogged, I'm like, oh, now I remember like scenes from like the beginning.
And I love that they mentioned Arthur Rackham, because I know who that is now, and I think the last time I read this book, however many years ago that was, I don't think I did, and now I know that like he's an illustrator that I actually really like. So it was kind of fun to like see them use his name, and I'm like, oh, I know who this person is now. Like,
yeah, I like have no very little recollection of the next book, so I trust you that it leads into the next book somehow.
Into one of my favorite parts of the next book.
Ooh, I'm excited.
I'm curious too, especially like in a way, it's like, oh, I don't love the Eternity Code maybe isn't my favorite book, but it's also really exciting because now I'm like, what's gonna be my new favorite? Because when we started rereading these, I didn't anticipate my favorites list changing at all, because I've read these. Yeah, because I've read these so many times, and I know the stories, except for the last couple, I haven't reread them very much. But like I've read this series so many times that I thought I had it pretty firmly in my head about what was my favorite, what was my least favorite, and I would have thought that the Eternity Code would stay like at the top of my list, and I still love it. But now I'm like interested to see, because I remember the Opal Deception as like not being one of my favorites.
I'm really nervous about the Opal Deception. I always skip parts of that book, honestly. I always skip parts of book 4 and book 5 whenever I reread them. So I'm interested to see how I feel actually reading it all the way through, because I don't know if I've done that in a good, like, I don't know, 8 years.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, do we want to talk about the next live show before we hang up? I haven't even looked at the calendar. Let's see. What is the last Sunday of the month? That would be on the 28th.
I can do
the 28th or the 5th would be the two options. So yeah, April 28th or May 5th would be our.
I wonder which would be less crowded as far as like other people's live streams, but I'm fine with either.
Yeah, either works.
The only question, like I know the reason we tended to do it farther down the line is that we want to give people as much time as possible to read the book. But I mean, in this case, it'd only be a difference of like if you're assuming that you have a whole month to read it and we have it on the 28th, that's only 2 days difference.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? I guess it's gonna be this one's gonna be on my channel, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. 28th or the 5th. I don't really have a preference either.
Yeah. When's Easter again? That's the 21st of April, right?
Yeah, it was just the 21st. I just realized that I get the time paradox on my channel. I'm so excited.
That's number 6, right?
Yes.
It has some of my favorite.
Sorry, we're sticking with all the bad ones, Taylor.
Well, okay, so book 5 is going to be interesting because The Opal Deception is the last one I read, and that's 4, right?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to be like, the next time I host, it'll be a completely new book for me. It'll be a new experience.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. The Lost Colony. I'm interested to read it because I wonder if the things I disliked about it so much, if I'll still dislike. And thinking about it, I'm like, I know there are going to be some really interesting parts, but like, I wonder if it's going to be like The Rescuers Down Under with me, where it's like all the things I hated about it as a kid. Rewatching it as an adult, I'm like, these are all the things that I love about it now. I was like, I don't want anyone else talking to like Miss Bianca and all this stuff and like the like Australian like mouse or whatever. And now as an adult, I'm like, he's my favorite part. He's the best part. Screw Bernard. Like, so like, I wonder if it's gonna be like that for me.
Okay, so let's say the 28th is what we'll plan on, and then if we figure out that maybe the next week would be better for people or like there's something else going on, we can change it. But for now, the plan is going to be April 28th. Yeah, April 28th at the same time, so 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, and it will be on my channel, and we will be discussing The Opal Deception. And I'm really excited because now I'm remembering certain other things about that book that are like, is this going to be my new favorite? So I don't know. We'll see, but I'm excited. All right, is anything else you guys want to?
I think that's it.
Yeah,
Giselle should do our sign off.
I'm confused as to how big this cube is as well, though, because like how. Like, it's not practical to carry around a cube unless it's like.
I was assuming it was like this big, but then Artemis uses a keyboard on it at one point, and I'm like, what? Like, is it a tiny keyboard? Like,
I imagined a Rubik's Cube, so.
That's, yeah.
I don't know, like, I always kind of pictured it bigger, but I guess he can scan everything. So I was like, and then I was like, wait, does it have to be big enough to put a CD in? But no, he can just scan the CD. So. I don't know. I'm just like, it just seems unpractical. Why would he make a cube?
Yeah. Well, do you remember when the US and the UK covers originally came out and everybody was like, is the cube blue or red? Like, because I always pictured it blue because that's the cover I have. My original copy is that cover. So I always assumed it was blue and I didn't even know there was like this huge controversy about it until like a few years ago. And it's like, people have very strong feelings about this cube.
I just always pictured it as silver. Like, because it's like metal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Didn't think about that.
Unless he like spray painted it blue afterwards, which doesn't seem like Artemis' style. Can you imagine him? He's like, I finished my beautiful work of text.
No. He'd be like, Butler, I need you to finish the project for me. It's the messy part. Go and spray paint this, Butler.
Oh gosh, making sure you stick a primer on so it doesn't rub off whenever like the components pop out and stuff.
And top coat.
Yeah, I don't know. I always picture it silver, but like it's not practical, and I like am confused about that. Sorry, I was just like looking at the cover and I'm like, this is a giant cube that this person is holding. That is so big. Like that's like huge.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry. I just like. Thought of that as I was like, anything else to say about this? Why is the cube so big? Okay, well, anyway, thank you all for joining us. I'm not looking at the chat anymore. Sorry, let me pull that back up just to see if anyone said anything. Chris pictured it as black, so I'll picture it at different colors, I guess. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. I'm really excited to read the next one because I do always remember the fourth one being one of my favorites. Like, it was definitely in my top 4. Like, I had like a most favorite section and a least favorite section. It definitely fell in the most favorite section, even though there were parts that I skipped. So we'll see about that, but definitely a really good setup for that one. I'm excited to see. So
yeah.
Anyway, we'll see you all on the 28th on Kara's channel if you're not subscribed yet. It's linked in the description. And see you then. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.